I've gotten a lot of comments on my previous videos of people wondering where's the option to upgrade modules, and that doesn't exist because they haven't come to global yet. Thank goodness. But now that Lingering Echoes is coming soon, we're gonna get this amazing system along with a very fun 100% entertaining, cool, and not a strain on society game mode called Stationary Security Service that's become the favorite part of AK to so many players. Amia, why are our trading posts not working? Did I accidentally put a 36-hour shift again? We're out of gold? Shoot, where do we get more bars? We gotta go to the mines? Okay, I guess I'll follow you then. Stationary Security Service, or SSS, plays similar to a card game, except it's brutally rigged against your favor, and you need to farm it for module upgrades. If you've played card games before, you'll understand this a lot easier. Each stage consists of 8 floors, which are basically maps, with each floor getting progressively harder. When you start a stage, you either select 14 operators from your roster, or you can select 13 operators from your roster and a friend's support unit. Going into each floor, you start with 10 random ops, which is basically your starting hand. You can choose up to 4 ops to get rid of in exchange for some of this currency that I'll explain later, and you'll get the same number of ops that replace them. The number to the right of your starting hand shows the number of ops in the deck, and the number to the left shows the number of ops in the graveyard. You can tap on them to show which ops are in which. Basically, operators in the deck can be drawn into your hand at the beginning of the floor, or when you use these voucher thingies to draw more ops. Each operator you draw is random and takes more vouchers up until a cap. The operators you exchanged at the beginning get put into the graveyard, and once the deck runs out, the graveyard gets shuffled into the deck. If this is confusing, it'll make more sense once you play the game mode, so don't worry too much. Anyways, now you can start playing the game. The core gameplay is basically the same as regular stages. Ideally, you kill all the enemies to pass the floor, but you can always leak too if you're not having good RNG, which there's a lot of. What's different is that you can deploy operators on top of each other. The operator that gets deployed on top of will get sent to the graveyard, and depending on the class of the previous operator, the newly deployed operator will get different buffs. You can stack a maximum of 5 buffs on each operator. These buffs can be seen at the start of your run, and you have 2 options for each class on which buff to go for. For example, the A side of casters gives operators deployed on top of casters 20% attack and 1 SP per second, while the B side gives 40% attack. You're free to mix and match sides, so you don't have to stick with all your class buffs to, let's say, just A side. As you play the floor, killing enemies gives vouchers, so you can draw and deploy more operators to get more buffs on the field. Having some cracked ops is always fun to play around with, but the enemies also scale as the floor progresses too. The bar next to the enemy count shows the danger level, with each level giving enemies 5% attack and defense, as well as 25% HP. This doesn't sound like much at first, but the slower you play the map, the crazier the enemies get. Higher floors will also start at higher danger levels, so it basically becomes hell to open in a map. There are rest points after beating enemy waves on the floor, giving you 40 vouchers instantly, letting you draw more ops from the deck. These rest points can also have little scrimblow enemy guys that if you beat will drop a cool item that can provide some strategic advantages. These items are drawn and discarded the same as your operators. If an operator reaches 0 HP, their kneecaps will be broken by a metal bat, making them unable to perform any actions or be hit, but they can still be deployed on top of for a couple of seconds, which lets you save your buffs. If you don't deploy on top of them in time, or if you retreat an operator, they just get sent to the graveyard. Once you beat the floor, you move on to the next one, and the game prompts you to choose more ops to add to your deck. At the start of the run, you can tell the game which ops you prefer. The game can either give you ops that you already raised, or it can give you any ops in your roster with a small side of temporary recruitments, and you repeat this cycle for the next 8 floors. There are first-time clear rewards for beating each new floor on the stage. You have to run through all 8 floors 1.5 times in order to get all your rewards for the 2-week cycle, but if you're lazy like me, you can just do 2 runs with 6 floors each, because trying to get through all 8 floors is a pain that no one should willingly put on themselves. If you fail a floor, you can reattempt it as many times as you want, but at the end of the reward cycle, which is every 2 weeks, your run will automatically be reset. I'll let you guys in on a little secret. I haven't touched this game mode in months because it's so horrible to play. There's some novelty in your first run, since you get to play with fun buffs, but after that, the stages and enemies scale so hard that you never want to play it ever again. This is the limit of what I'll say about the game mode, cause if I criticize anything more about the game, Amiya will waterboard me, so I'll pass the mic over to my clone. Everyone welcome, the one and only specialist god, Zafang. I didn't even know this place existed. How did you set all this up? Blood money? Oh, makes sense. Alright, so where's the gold? I just want to make sure you're not abusing the workers with the long hours and terrible living conditions and benefits, right? You have your own insurance company? What?
This game mode fucking sucks! Whose idea was it to give peons higher stats than elite enemies? So as he said, this game mode's mechanics are a bit whack. On paper, having 5 stacks of attack speed on Golden Glow would be funny, and it is. But the novelty wears off fast when you realize you actually need these to win. It's not uncommon to have enemies with 3 times the HP, attack and defense by the end. There's 2 problems with this that come together to make everything hell. With how defense cuts fist damage, the cap for it is usually higher for it than arts, which makes it perfect for high HP enemies. Higher DPS equals win. However, you can't do that with how high defense gets on the elites. And if you try to use arts, you're not killing these overbuffed enemies. Only the insane 6 stars with buffs can even dent them. And on the other side, you're being ass blasted by enemies dealing 50 billion damage to you. There's just too much stats and little viable options. It doesn't even reward you properly for clearing it. You either clear it 1.5 times to get all rewards, or you stop halfway and do it like 3 times to get everything. Sure, you can beat it with a low rarity squad if you try hard enough. If you spend hours strategizing and rolling RNG, which, mind you, you need to if you want to get specific buffs on an operator, you can definitely beat this mode. But do you really want to do that every 2 weeks? This is a grinding mode first and foremost. Yet, it's such a pain to go through without having specific carries maxed out. At the very least, you can borrow 2 operators, but as I briefly mentioned earlier, there's still RNG. With every floor you pass, you gain 2 extra operator cards. While this seems like a good thing at first, having more options, if you're trying to get certain cards in your deck to get specific buffs, it just bloats up your deck by the final boss. And that's when you want to even get specific op setups ready. I can't count how many times I've had to reroll just to get my 5 snipers to buff Golden Glow for the final floor. To sum things up, the stat increase is stupid, especially when it's skewed towards arts. Basic enemies killing your ops in 4 hits is also not a fun mechanic. Add this to the fact that you have to manually grind this multiple times bi-weekly, and you get the single worst mode HG has ever created. I've never gotten mad at Arknights ever until SSS drop. I can only pray we get the updated version on release. Now, with all of this out of the way, how do you actually win? There's a few good combinations, but in general, you should be looking through your own operators to see who benefits the most from buffs. Here's a list of my personal favorites. Rosmotus with either caster buff sides and maybe some attack speed absolutely shreds on skill. Passenger with attack speed has perma-slow, but you might want to go for a caster A side to spam S3 instead. Sculptor with caster B side is absolutely cracked. She gets to buff way more people from her own buff. Gnosis with attack speed can also perma-freeze, which is good against some of the bosses to shut them down or just against some of the elites. Recently, I've also been experimenting with Ethan Mod 3 and Specialist D side. S2 basically has 90% uptime and 100% bind uptime. And of course, we can't forget the queen of SSS. Golden Glow with Sniper A side for as much attack speed as you can get. Attack speed allows her to abuse that explosion talent to disgusting heights, and it shreds quite a bit of stages in this mode. It makes it much more bearable for sure. Unfortunately, you'll still have to roll the RNG to stack snipers first. It's a really good combo. Heli drop ops aren't as good, stuff like Sylvash and Surtur being okay picks due to the fact that you need buffs to deal damage, but they are still fine picks. And finally, for ops that work without buffs, Moena and Gavialta are the absolute best at this shot with how much raw DPS they have, but Shorter can work decently well until her skill runs out too. So these are ops that you'd be placing down when you're still trying to set everything else up. Other than that, nothing else from me. All I can say is good luck playing the mode.
Oh, you're partnered with Zafang. Wait, so he owns the mining facilities? How did his merch line go bankrupt? I thought it was pretty fashionable. Maybe I should have actually sold the pictures of his feet.